Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to teach you how to paint a floral pumpkin arrangement. So let's do it! Okay, so to start, I'm just going to go through my materials. I have B watercolor paper with me today. I have my Winsor Cotman watercolors, and I also have my Princeton snap brushes. I have a size 4 and a size 10, and water and paper towel, and we're ready to go. So today we are going to be painting kind of a pumpkin with a floral arrangement on top. It is very easy and fun. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the first layer of the floral arrangement. So we're not going to go into detail with shapes and stuff as much. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of decide on what flowers you want. So I'm just going to give you an example. This is what I did before. I have some sunflowers, I have some like roses, but because it's so small, it's not as detailed. So you don't have to be so rigid with how you're painting it, and it still looks awesome. So I am going to first lay down some shapes. So I'm just going to take my cadmium red deep and some purple, and I'm just going to lay down some circles of where I want maybe some roses to be. Okay, maybe not too many. Okay, then I'm going to pick another color, so maybe some orange, and I'm going to do some more kind of circles of where some other flowers will be. And then I'm going to get some yellow and pick where I want some sunflowers to be. So I'm just going to do rough sunflower petals. And if they bleed into each other, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. I think it looks quite cool. And it's just the first layer. We're going to go over it in detail after. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to go in with some green. I actually should be using my smaller brush for this. So that's my size 10. I'm going to go with my size 4. I'm going to take a bit of sap green. Just mix it with whatever green I have on here. It doesn't really matter too much. And I'm just going to do some leaves coming out to the side. Don't worry about too much detail. We are going to go over it later. Like I said, they can bleed into the flowers if you like. We will go over it. But really right now, you're just kind of picking your color palette and just laying down those colors to start. Okay, so I might even get some darker green. I have like Hooker's Green Dark and Dioxazine Purple mixed in here somewhere. I do some different leaves like that. I'm going to get some green in between some of these flowers. Okay, the trick to having them not bleed so much into one another is not using a lot of water and a lot of paint. Okay, when you have a bigger brush, it tends to bleed a lot more because you're adding a lot more water onto that area. So if you're doing smaller details, I would suggest using a smaller brush, just in case you were wondering. Okay. So there's our first layer, and you're gonna let this dry and then come back. Okay, so now it's dry, we're gonna add more details to these flowers because right now they're just circly blobs. Okay, so now you're gonna take a more saturated version of those colors. So you're going darker. That's why you did a lighter value at the beginning, and you're just gonna, so these red ones you can add as like roses. You're just gonna do those curve shapes over those circle blobs to add more details. So that first layer is acting as a highlight, okay? And again, don't be too rigid with it. Just, You know, it's gonna look nice after anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. I feel like that's my motto. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, just like that, and it looks like flowers. And you're gonna do the same thing with those orange ones. I want a rusty orange, so I had a bit of brown in there too. And maybe these could be peonies more, so you could do a bit more I don't know, like little lines. Or you could even do those dahlias. I kind of blurred these flowers, guys. Or you could just do like little petals like this. Like that. Okay. Yeah, that's cute. Okay. You just add in some wherever you like. If you want to go a bit darker to add a bit more shadow, you can do that. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to add the middle of those sunflowers. I'm just going to add some brown, just do some brown dots. I'm going to wait to go over the petals until these middles are dry because I don't want them to bleed into the petals or the brown part. Like that. Okay, we'll go over those sunflower petals after those centers are dry. And then you can just make the greenery a bit brighter if you like. I'm gonna mix my dioxazine purple and Hooker's green dark to get that nice dark green. Excuse my sniffling, guys. Allergies have got me. You can even add some lines on the leaves if you like, just a bit more detail, however you want to do it. You can just go over it all together, whatever you prefer. That. Okay, maybe a bit more bright green in there too. I'm gonna add some more sap green. You can also just fill in any little white areas that you want to make it look a bit more fuller. Okay, and we will go over those sunflowers in a minute. I haven't forgot about them. Okay, and we're also gonna add some of those kind of like wheat stalks. I feel like they're very fall, so you're just going to do a little line and just use the tip of your brush to make little, excuse me. And if you want to, you can always change up the color palette too. You know, look on Pinterest for ideas of fall floral arrangements if you'd like to go in a different direction. Like that. And I think those centers are pretty dry, so I'm just gonna go in with some cadmium yellow and yellow ochre to make those sunflowers petals a bit darker. You can even add some more yellow pops in there, wherever you like so. Okay, so before you do the pumpkin part, make sure that all the flowers are dry because you don't want those colors bleeding into the pumpkin. So I'm just going to quickly use my heat tool to just heat it up. Okay, so now that it's dry, we're gonna do the pumpkin part. If you have watched my tutorial on pumpkins the other day, then you'll know how to do this. And if not, I will teach you right now. But we're gonna be doing a gray pumpkin this time. So here I have a really light wash of Payne's Gray. And I'm just gonna take that really, really light wash. And I'm going to start by doing a long oval, kind of with the top cut off. So when we were doing the pumpkin tutorial the other day, you did a long oval. Here, you're obviously not gonna see the top because it is under the flowers. So there you go, there's the center section. Then you're gonna do a C curve to one side, coming up just slightly above the bottom of this with your light wash. And you can leave a white space there if you want, you don't have to. Another C curve to this side. Again, coming up slightly above the one beside it. And again. Okay, so there you go. Now we're gonna go back in and add darker color. So I'm using B watercolor paper for this one. And my last pumpkin, I used Arches. Arches stays wet a lot longer. So with this one, or if you are using just cheaper paper in general, you're gonna wanna make sure to go over the whole pumpkin again, because I can already tell you this has already started to dry. So go over each section again with some water before we add in our darker color, because it has already started to dry. B watercolor paper is decent, but it does dry faster than Arches, so just keep that in mind. And if you're using a paper like Canson, that dries even faster. Okay, so just wet the whole thing over again. Now you're gonna take some more color, a bit darker, and you're just gonna go over the lines of those sections, leaving it darker at the bottom, and you can make it darker right underneath those flowers too. Okay. And because there's such sharp lines right now, you want to blend them out a bit. So I'm just gonna wash off my brush a bit, and I'm just gonna move that color around so it's not just sharp lines. Okay, I'm gonna go back in with more color, make it darker again. And you just kind of keep doing this until you're satisfied with the way it looks, your shape, all that stuff. So if you didn't watch my pumpkin tutorial in my last video, you'll know that we want to keep these centers of the sections lighter, because that is acting as a highlight. Because when the pumpkin is bumpy, the parts that are going in will have more of a shadow because they are further away from a light source, and then the parts that come out, that stick out more, will be darker. Or sorry, will be lighter, will have a highlight. So we're just trying to leave those centers lighter. So it's going to be darkest at the bottom and right underneath these flowers and in the crevices of each kind of section, okay? So there we go, we have our first layer. We're gonna let that dry, and then we will come back and do the lines to make it a bit sharper. Okay, so that part's dry. Now we're gonna go back in and do our second layer with more detail. I have switched to my size 4 brush because I'm not going over as much of a surface area for this part. So I want a smaller brush so I can use it for a bit more detail. I'm just gonna add a bit darker Payne's Gray there. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go over the lines with a bit of a darker gray like that. Now this paper, remember, dries fast. You're gonna wanna blend it out. Wash off your brush and blend it out so it's still light in the middle. Okay, this paper dries really fast. So if you leave that dark line there, like for more than, I don't know, a couple seconds, wash off your brush, blend it out, you'll see that sharper line. You don't have as much of a grace period with this paper, okay? And we don't want to have a dark, like we want a dark, sharp line, but we want it to fade out. Okay, so I'm just going over it a little bit, but it's already started to, like, honestly, it's already started to dry. Not the biggest fan of this paper. It's not bad, but it's not arches, guys. It's not arches. I'm just gonna try and blend out this, wash off your brush, blend out that dark color. Okay, so I wanted to make it darker underneath the flowers and darker on the sides and the bottom. Like that. Okay, so that's our first section. So again, I'm just gonna take a bit more of a darker pigment. I'm going to do the line, wash off my brush really fast, and blend that line out. Wash off and try and blend it out. Already you see it didn't blend out as easily because I left it like that's too long. So if you get frustrated with this part, just, you know, it takes a little bit of practice and speed. So for pumpkins, you might want to get better quality paper if you can. Just adding a bit more darkness underneath there and here. Okay. Also with this paper, you tend to have more of those blooms, okay? But I honestly don't mind it with this. I think it adds a bit more texture and I kind of like it. So if that also happens, don't get frustrated. It's the paper, but I think it adds a little bit of something. I'm just going over a bit more darkness. There. There, okay? Just trying to blend it out. Okay, the other one. So just make sure that first layer is completely dry before you do this part, or else you'll get a lot more blooms and it might not be as forgiving. Okay. But this paper actually kind of really brings out that watercolor effect. So I don't mind it, I really don't. I think it looks a bit more textured and I really do enjoy it. So this is a bit more seamless, while this is gonna have those blooms and have those watermarks, and I kind of like it. So just keep that in mind if it turns out differently than you think it would. Wash it off, blend it out. Okay, and then this last section here, wash off, soften that line. You can go back in, more darkness, and just let it bleed. Like that. Okay, and there you go. Really, that's all there is to it. I like the way it looks, and you could always cut this out, you know, put it on a card. You could write like gather underneath nicely in letter, like cool lettering. But yeah, there is your floral arrangement on top of a pumpkin. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something.
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for more. Have a great day, guys. Bye!